How do we get out of that lower self into the higher self? How do we get out of the lower nature to the higher nature? How do you move from mere happiness to full-out joy? Mere happiness is about happenings, happenstance, haphazard. As my son asked me, what's the difference? Happiness and joy are the same thing. They're synonyms. But happenings happen out here. You won the lottery. And shouldn't you be happy? Yeah. And then you lost, the job relationship or the thing that you wanted. And shouldn't you be unhappy? Yeah. It's okay. Because it's all out here. It's the rising and falling of your participation in the outer world. But that doesn't define the who that you are. The who that you are is a being of joy. I am a being of joy. Together. I am a being of joy. I am sourced in the fulfillment of my inner nature. Together. I am sourced in the fulfillment of my inner nature. And where is that? It's inside. And who is that? That is that part of yourself that is always witnessing, that is always watching. It is the watcher. It is the witness. It is the observer self. It is the true nature. You want to know what's your soul? Your soul is that of you, which is non-physical, that is watching what's going on out here. And to the extent that you are sourcing in joy, the inner experience, you're sourcing in your soul. You're moving your consciousness. You're advancing the play of your game. You're advancing the play of your soul. It's incredible. There's a wonderful poem. I read this in a book of Robert Bly's, but it's written by Juan Jimón Jiménez. I am not I. I am not I. I am this one walking beside me whom I do not see, whom at times I manage to visit, and whom at other times I forget, who remains calm and silent while I talk, and forgives gently when I hate, who walks where I am not, who will remain standing when I die. What is that aspect of you? It is your true nature. And yet you have to accept your whole self. You have to accept the fact that life is going to be ups and downs, goods, bads. Jesus said it rains upon the just and the unjust alike. You're going to have rain, you're going to have sunshine. It's just part of life. So don't sweat it. Don't sweat that small stuff. Move with it, observe it, because something interesting happens. When you step back into the observer self and you start looking at your life with the eyes of your soul, at first you're going to feel uncomfortable. You'll feel I'm out of control. That's what we mostly experience, most of us, in the early stages of meditation. I can't control my mind. I can't get it. And then something happens. As you watch it without judgment, it dissolves. It dissolves. And what comes out of it? It unleashes and unlocks an energy that I will call bliss. And it just seems to happen of itself. And it seems like when I meditate or when I'm doing this work, when I'm in a conflict or I bring myself back into that observer self, to the extent that I'm able to do that, I experience more bliss, the more agitated that lower self seems to be. Now sometimes you got to do little tricks, sometimes you got to do little things to remind yourself to move out of the lower nature and move up into that higher nature. And that brings us to the good old-fashioned spiritual thermometer. How many of you know about the spiritual thermometer? Most of you do. You can pick up a copy of this outside of fellowship, put it up on your dresser, and you can remind yourself of it. But what you do is you ask yourself, where am I right now in my consciousness? You might be below a 5, you might be eking up to a 6, but you can ask yourself, where would I like to be? And then by lifting up, using a focused act of conscious will, your imagination will move you up to that level that you need to be or that you choose to be, and from there you can start seeing things differently. And you don't judge things negatively. You accept things as they are. I remember in my first church, I'd been a minister for about 3 months, and I kind of expected that I would have this wonderful, blissful, wonderful experience. Every Sunday morning I'd come home and I'd feel great and be hungry, eat brunch, whatever. But instead, I would find week after week, I would be exhausted, burned out feeling, out of sorts. I didn't understand what was wrong with me. And finally, after about 3 months, I said, okay, what's going on? And what came to me was, write down everything that you didn't like that happened this morning, everything that didn't happen the way you wanted it to. And so I wrote down 40 things. I numbered them. There were only 35 people in the service. And then I got, okay, now cross off the ones you could do nothing about. And they were mostly the opinions and judgments and things of others or circumstances that I really couldn't do anything about. And then circle the ones, what can you do is circle the ones that you can do something about. There were 6. But circle them. Okay, now, write down what you're going to do about them. And I not even what I was going to do about it. It was more how I envisioned. You know what Butterworth says, don't set it right, see it right. And so what I wrote was on a piece of paper, I am now creating. And for each one I wrote down what it is that I would like to see happen without big attachment to it. Now, doing this work without attachment is crucial. And people say, but don't you have to have attachment to get something done? Gandhi was a great example of this. He overthrew the greatest empire the world has ever known, which is the British Empire, by doing his work without attachment. Always doing his work without attachment. He wasn't passive, he was engaged, but he didn't let the snapshot of what's going on in this second deter him from doing his further work. And then so I wrote this down, and what I found was in all those 6 situations, things started shifting, things started moving. And the other ones I could do nothing about, so I just made peace with it. I just crossed them off the list. And I never again, there are times that I want to come home and take a nap, but I never again had that feeling of that debilitating something because I embraced my limitations by accepting things as they are. I stopped living out of the desire for happiness, the happenings, the happenstance, the haphazard events that are happening out here, and I moved into the joy of sourcing from within, and then I could make a difference. And embracing your limitations. Now, this is a very difficult concept for a lot of people. Don't get too hung up on it. But for me, it was very helpful. However, there was a church once when I became the minister of the church. It was a hard sell. Because the minister before me always would teach the people, you can be happy all the time. And if you're not happy all the time, there's something wrong with you. And I remember thinking, when I learned that, boy, I'm gonna have to disabuse them of that illusion. You know, so many things in life are disillusioning. And you think, oh, I don't want to be disillusioned. No, you want to be disillusioned. You want those illusions shattered because underneath the surface of those illusions is what? Reality. And reality is so frothy and yeasty and filled with life. It's filled with life. Jesus said, what does it profit you if you gain the whole world, that is happenings, and you lose your soul? Meaning you lose the life force energy. Soul was understood in this culture to mean a lot of things, but also the essence of life itself. And so I was in this situation where everybody was expecting to be happy all the time. And was it any surprise that it was a big disappointment a lot of the time? Instead of understanding the one thing you do have control over is what you bring to life, and that is the jewel, the joy, the consciousness that may have an up and may have a down, but is observing it at all times and experiencing something that's deeper, your soul essence, which does not need to win the lottery to be okay. You know, no matter how delicious that Haagen-Dazs chocolate ice cream is, it's not going to give you what your soul is looking for. And no matter how wonderful that person you're pursuing is and how they seem to make you feel, it's never going to give you what you're looking for. The only thing that you can ever count on is the inner experience that you bring to life, and then you can bring to bear things. Well, at our first board meeting, I was disabused further of this because we were going around the circle and we were doing check-in. You ever do check-in in a meeting? And so we're checking in. Where are you at? And there was something I was working on within myself, and I shared. I'm embracing a limitation right now. And one woman was so offended, she almost jumped out of her seat. She says, you don't have any limitations. And I thought, how am I going to do this one? Because limitations are there to assist you in moving through and past them, using them as the raw materials out of which you're creating an experience of joy. I create an experience of joy. Together, I create an experience of joy, even through my limitations. Together, even through my limitations. so you don't get caught up in it. You don't get all balled up in it. You don't go, oh, I'm happy here, I'm unhappy here. I had a friend of mine who used to rate his years. Every New Year's Eve, he'd sit down and he'd give a scale of 1 to 10 how the year was, and he kept a running tab the last several years. Last time I saw him, he'd moved from being in a more traditional thing. His wife was Catholic, and he was a Buddhist. I'm a Buddhist who attends Mass every Sunday. But he'd opened up his scope of his awareness, and he said, I found out that the years that I thought were so good really didn't give me much of anything, and the ones that I thought were so terrible were the gift that kept on giving, because he worked with it, because he moved with it. That when you embrace your limitations, you are no longer subject to them. Jesus said, I am not subject to this world. He said, I do not give as the world gives. Where does he give from? Well, it means talking about giving from another consciousness. This is the universal message of all spirituality. Don't source in all this out here. Live in the world, but not of it. There's so much that we can get out of this, but no less than St. Bob Dylan talked about this in an interview. Somebody asked him, are you a happier person than you were 20 years ago? And he got real quiet. He said, oh man, I've never even thought about that. Happiness is just not on my list of priorities. I mean, if I'm happy, I'm happy. If I'm not, I don't know the difference. You know, these are yuppie words, happiness and unhappiness. He said, knowing that you're the person that you were put on this earth to be is much more important than just being happy. Besides, that kind of happiness is just a balloon. It's just temporary stuff. It's fine to be happy. There's nothing wrong with being happy, just as it's fine to be unhappy. You know, Jesus said, blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. And he was trying to pop the balloon that you got to be happy all the time. He said, he's basically saying, blessed are those who feel all their feelings, because they won't feel so bad. They'll be comforted. If you let yourself not wallow, not get stuck in, not move into the lower levels of the consciousness, but to move into a consciousness that is not limited in your thinking, not limited in that lesser consciousness, not limited, and yet it's embracing the limitations. And how do you do that? Well, you move past and you observe. You know, John Kabat-Zinn, the meditation teacher, said something that was so simple that it was almost challenging. Somebody asked him, because he's a great teacher of mindfulness meditation, they said, what's your definition of meditation? He said, meditation is nothing more than observing your mind and moods. Observing your mind and moods. How do you observe your mind and moods? Well, you may use some kind of tools, and I want to share one with you that may be useful to you. It's come to me in the last few weeks, and maybe it'll help you. You know, the number one thing I deal with when I talk to people about meditation and observing the self is I can't do it, my mind wanders, etc. But remember that the actual wandering of your mind is part of the process of meditation, just as lifting a weight includes having a weight in your hands. Well, I'm failing because I'm feeling this weight. No. That's what you're using to build your muscles. You're using your mind wandering in order to build the consciousness that you need to have. And the method I want to share with you is rooted in Louise Hay's book, You Can Heal Your Life. How many of you have ever read or know about Louise Hay's You Can Heal Your Life? It's a book, basically, it's a series of affirmations based on certain symptoms of physical or emotional states that you're grappling with. And she gives you affirmations to work with, and that's all fine and dandy. But it came to me in meditation. Well, two things came to me. One thing, I was in a very deep meditation, and the words came to me. Happiness, happiness is weak. Satisfaction is deep. Happiness is cheap. Soul satisfaction is deep. And I was in such a deep state, I barely could reach over. I put it in my little tape recorder and I put it away. And only later I found it. So I forgot it again this morning. But happiness is cheap. Soul satisfaction is deep. And so then what came to me was that I was to take the affirmations for whatever was going on with me in You Can Heal Your Life. So if my hip was hurting, I'd do the affirmation for a hip. Or if my nose were running, a running nose. Whatever the thing was, and if you've read the book, you know what I'm talking about. If not, go online. You don't have to buy the book. It's all online. And I took my little tape device, my little recording device. By the way, your phone has one, even if it's not a smartphone, even a dumb phone has a recording device on it nowadays. And I just recorded the affirmations for the various states that I was dealing with, physical or emotional, whatever was up for me. And it was, was a minute's worth of affirmations. And then what I did was, I put on my headphones and I used it as a meditation for the next several days. I would listen to the first affirmation, turn it off, and I would meditate on that, feel it, get into it. I am safe in my world, or I give and receive love, or whatever it was. And I would feel and generate that energy, generate that consciousness until my mind wandered. And when my mind wandered, not if, but when my mind wandered, I would go to the next one and the next one. And several times by the end of it, I was gone. But sometimes I wasn't. Don't ever judge your meditations in that way, but you never know. So work with these things. Move from the lower to the higher. Take your spiritual thermometer and realize that, you embrace the limitation that you're in. You're down in your ego where it feels fearful and dangerous and there's drama. But realize, I am not my drama, I am that I am. Together? I am not my drama, I am that I am. And when you're in this state, don't make any decisions, don't make any actions, but imagine yourself. Where would I like to be? 9. And then just see the little line go up. And it's so simple, but what you'll find is that you'll move into another consciousness. It'll give you that little gap in your consciousness so that you can be the observer self. The word that was once used with me was bifurcate. I love that word. It's a $20 word. Bifurcate. You move back, bifurcate, and then you can look at whatever the state is, whether it's happiness or winning the lottery or unhappiness because of your toe hurting, and you observe it. And if you stay with it, you'll find that it will unlock and unleash an energy that will move you into another place, a place of your true being, a place that is, it's that true self, that essence of you, and it isn't that part of yourself that is dependent upon circumstances being just so in order for you to experience joy, because it's based in the lower happiness. You want to move up into that higher joy-like state. So we're going to do that now. We've got a little ceremony with the children, and if someone could go tell Diane back there that we're going to give her the time to do her ceremony with the children at the end of the service. But what I want you to do is, once again, imagine yourself, take something in your life that you're grappling with or you're dealing with in your life, and imagine the spiritual thermometer, the stick thermometer. Imagine where you are with that thing. Are you at a 3? Are you at a -3? Are you at a 6? Wherever you are, just accept it and observe it. Let it be what it appears to be in this moment. Embrace it. Let it be. And now ask yourself, where would I like to be with this? And be bold. Being a 6.5 just may not be enough. Just decide where you'd like to be. And imagine that stick thermometer, the mercury moving up, up, up to the desired level. And as it does, feel yourself, feel your energy lift. Feel energetically a new consciousness, a new feeling, a new something. And without trying to figure anything out, know that the what of the universe will figure it out for you. But feel the energy and the vibration, see it right. And carry this energy with you into your world, and let the substance of this energy move your heart, move your soul, move your mind, and change your experience even your outcomes. Thank you, God. So now take a deep breath and let it out. And I want you to let go of everything in your hands. All papers, all objects. And just open your palms. And take another deep breath and let it out. And know that you are free. In this moment, you're free from all the limitations, the encumbrances of your old self, your old familiar thinking. And you're moving from the limited view of happiness as being sourced in getting what you want and having things be just so outside of yourself. That's all fine. That's all good. But how about a joy that is sourced from within the deepest recesses of your being? But how can you get there? How can you move yourself out of having your happiness dependent upon the conditions of life? And how can you move into a joy that you can carry around with you, that you can experience as your true being and essence at all times, no matter what? It requires that you move out of the limited self into the unlimited self. And so just imagine the spiritual thermometer. If you don't know what that is, just imagine a stick thermometer numbered from 1 to 10. And at 5 there's a line, and everything below that 5 is in your limited self. And everything above that 5 is your unlimited higher nature. And recognize that you are unlimited spirit. But to experience it, you have to choose. Use the power of your imagination. So ask the question, if I knew where I was on the spiritual thermometer, where my consciousness was on a scale of 1 to 10, where would it be? And just silently notice what you see. And accept it. Embrace it. Let it be. Even if it isn't where you'd like to be, because by embracing things as they are, you can experience them where you want to be. And imagine the thermometer rising to where you would like it to be. Ask yourself, where would I like it to be? And just take that and imagine it moving up, up, up. And as the thermometer moves up, you feel yourself growing lighter and more spacious. Notice that as this energy and vibration lifts, that you have a different experience of yourself. Your face looks different. Your thoughts are different. Your body feels different, or maybe even looks and sits differently. The expression on your face. When your mind wanders, bring it back to the thermometer and remind yourself that you are at wherever you have chosen. And during this time, no matter what you think, just bring it back, bring it back. Bring it back to this higher place. And if you find yourself thinking, oh, this is just my imagination, know that your creative essence only has the imagination to work with. And so as you imagine it to be, so shall it be. As you lift up into your higher nature, your higher self, involving your mind time and again, bringing your attention back to where you are. bringing your mind back, time and again, to your new imagined state of consciousness and setting yourself free to experience it. In this now moment, that's all that you have. That's all that there is. I am not the drama of my life. I am that I am. I am not the limitations. I embrace them so I can move past them, and I lift up into my true enlightened self. Gratitude in my heart. I bring myself back to the presence of this room and let myself experience the energetic, light-filled, lifted up being that I am. Thank you, God. And so now we're going to prepare for our offering, and the offering statement is, I give from my soul and I receive abundantly. Together?
I give from my soul and I receive abundantly.
And silently. And again aloud together. I give from my soul and I receive abundantly. And so it is. Amen.
Amen.